The stars looked different now that humanity knew they were not alone. Commander Jake Morrison stood at the window of Earth's orbital station, watching the alien ship approach. It was beautiful in a strange way, with smooth curves and lights that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. After decades of wondering if anyone else existed in the universe, the answer was finally here. "They're requesting permission to dock," said Lisa Chen from her console. She was the station's science officer, and her hands shook slightly as she spoke. Everyone was nervous. This was the biggest moment in human history. "Grant them permission," Jake said. He straightened his uniform and tried to look calm. Inside, his heart was racing. The last 3 days had been a blur since the aliens first made contact. They called themselves the Zellion, and they said they came in peace. They represented something called the Galactic Coalition, a group of alien species that worked together across the stars. The docking process took 20 minutes. Jake gathered his team in the main bay. There were 12 humans total, including diplomats, scientists, and security personnel. Everyone had been carefully chosen for this moment. They all wore their best uniforms and practiced their welcoming speeches. The airlock door opened with a soft hiss. The first alien stepped through, and several humans gasped. Ambassador Verath was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the station's lights. He had 4 arms and large black eyes that held a gentle expression. Behind him came 3 more Zellion, all wearing flowing robes that marked them as scientists or diplomats. "Greetings, humans of Earth," Verath said. His voice came through a small device that translated his words into English. "We come as friends, and welcome you to the greater galactic community." Jake stepped forward and extended his hand. Verath looked at it curiously, then reached out with one of his 4 hands. They shook, and Jake felt the alien's skin was warm and slightly rough. "Welcome to our station, Ambassador," Jake said. "We're honored to meet you." The next few hours passed in a blur of introductions and explanations. The Zellion explained that they had been watching Earth for the past 50 years, waiting for humanity to develop space travel. It was coalition policy to only contact species once they could reach their own orbit. Now that humans had several orbital stations and had visited Mars, they qualified for first contact. "We have standard procedures for all new species," Verath explained as they sat in the conference room. "We must gather biological information, cultural data, and assess compatibility with other coalition members. This helps us determine how best to integrate your species into our community." "What does that involve?" Lisa asked. She had her datapad ready, eager to learn everything. "Simple tests," one of the Zellion scientists said. Her name was Nyrith, and she seemed kind. "We scan your DNA, study your biology, and run it through our databases. We've done this for thousands of species. It's completely safe." The humans agreed readily. They provided blood samples, tissue samples, and answered hundreds of questions about human biology, diet, reproduction, and evolution. The Zellion scientists worked efficiently, scanning the samples with devices that hummed and glowed. "This is fascinating," Nyrith said as she worked. "Your species is quite unique. You have remarkable endurance and adaptability." "We evolved to survive," Lisa explained. "Our ancestors could run for days, tracking animals across vast distances. We can live in almost any climate on our planet." "Impressive," Nyrith said, but something in her voice sounded uncertain. By the end of the day, the samples were processed and ready for analysis. The Zellion explained that they would run the data through their main computer system, which would classify humans according to thousands of different metrics. One of the most important was something they called the Predator Classification Index. "It's nothing to worry about," Verath assured them. "The index simply measures where a species falls on the predator-prey spectrum. It helps us understand your natural instincts and behaviors. Most civilized species rank somewhere in the middle ranges." "What do you rank?" Jake asked. "We Zellion are a 3.2, Verath said with what might have been a smile. "We're herbivores with very few predatory instincts. But we've met species as high as 7.5, who are wonderful coalition members. The scale goes to 10. But we've never encountered a species above 8. The humans nodded. It made sense. Humans were omnivores with some hunting instincts, but they weren't exactly fierce predators. Jake figured humans would probably rank somewhere around 5 or 6. The Zellian returned to their ship to process the data. They promised to return the next day with the results, and to discuss Earth's potential membership in the coalition. The humans celebrated that night, excited about the future. They would have access to alien technology, knowledge, and an entire galaxy of new friends. Jake slept poorly that night. He kept dreaming of distant worlds and alien cities. When morning came, he was awake before his alarm, eager for the Zellian to return. But when the alien ship approached the station again, something was different. They didn't request permission to dock. Instead, they sent a tight beam transmission directly to Jake's console. "Commander Morrison," Verath's voice said, and he sounded stressed. "We need to speak immediately. Do not allow anyone else to approach our ship. There's been a development with the test results." Jake's stomach dropped. Something was wrong. He could hear it in Verath's voice. "What kind of development?" Jake asked. There was a long pause. "The Predator Classification Index has produced results we need to discuss privately. Commander, this changes everything." The transmission ended, leaving Jake staring at a blank screen and wondering what could possibly be wrong with a simple biological test. Jake Morrison floated in the conference room, watching the view screen with growing confusion. Ambassador Verath's face filled the display, but he wouldn't make eye contact. The alien diplomat kept looking away, his 4 hands fidgeting with the edges of his robe. "Ambassador, you're making us nervous," Jake said. "Just tell us what the tests found." Lisa Chen sat beside him, her tablet ready to take notes. 2 security officers stood by the door, and the station's captain had joined them via video link from Earth. Everyone waited for Verath to speak. "Commander, how much do you know about your own evolution?" Verath asked finally. "Quite a bit," Lisa answered. "We evolved from primate ancestors over millions of years. We developed larger brains, began using tools, learned to hunt in groups. Is there something specific you want to know?" "Your hunting methods," Verath said. "Explain them to me." "When did this?" "Rye. A." Lisa glanced at Jake, confused by the question. "Well, our ancestors were persistence hunters. We couldn't run fast, but we could run for a very long time. We would chase animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. Sometimes, the hunt would last for days." Verath's skin seemed to pale even more. "Days. You would pursue prey for days. There. Intense for days. Yes, that's correct. We also used complex strategies, working in teams with different roles. Some people would drive the prey toward others who waited in ambush. We used tools and weapons to compensate for our lack of claws or fangs. And this hunting behavior," Verath continued, his voice strained, "it extended to hunting other humans?" The silence in the room was heavy. Jake understood what the ambassador was getting at. "Yes," Jake admitted. "Humans have fought wars against each other for thousands of years. We've been very good at it." 5. Crusaded. "We've been very good at it." Verath closed all 4 of his eyes. When he opened them again, he looked directly at the camera. "Commander Morrison, your species scored 9.8 on the Predator Classification Index." Nobody spoke for several seconds. Lisa checked her tablet, as if the number might be written there differently. "That must be a mistake," she said finally. "You told us yesterday that most species rank between 3 and 7. You said the highest you'd ever seen was 8. "I did say that," Verath agreed. "And it was true. We have records of over 10,000 species in the Coalition database. The average predator score is 4.2. The Krell, 4 armed hunters from a death world where everything tries to kill everything else. score 7.9. They are the most dangerous species currently in the coalition. Then how can we score higher? Jake demanded. We don't have armor, claws, venom, or any natural weapons. We're not even the most dangerous species on our own planet. That's what we thought too, Vareth said. We ran the test 3 times. The computer kept giving the same result. So we examined the breakdown. And that's when we understood. A graph appeared on the screen, showing various categories with human scores in each one. Jake read them aloud. Persistence. Hunting capability. 9.9. Pattern recognition and prediction. 9.7. Abstract strategic planning. 9.8. Pack coordination. 9.6. Environmental adaptability. 9.5. Tool creation and use. 9.9. Capacity for organized violence. 9.8. You excel at every single category, Varath explained. Individually, you're not particularly dangerous, but as a species, you're the most efficient predators the galaxy has ever measured. You can survive anywhere, create weapons from anything, work together in massive, coordinated groups, plan complex strategies, and you never give up once you've identified a target. Lisa shook her head slowly. But we're civilized. We've moved beyond our hunting instincts. Have you? Varath asked softly. Your entertainment is filled with stories of war and combat. Your sports involve simulated hunting or fighting. Your history is an endless cycle of warfare. Even your peaceful achievements are described in predatory terms. You attack problems, hunt for solutions, pursue goals relentlessly. Jake felt his face getting hot. We're not monsters. We've built a civilization based on cooperation and law. I believe you, Vareth said. But you need to understand what this means. Only one species in galactic history ever scored higher than you. They were called the Dravex Collective. They scored 9.9. What happened to them? Lisa asked, though her voice suggested she already knew. They nearly destroyed the galaxy, Varath said. They started peacefully, just like you. They joined the coalition, seemed friendly and helpful. Then, within a century, they turned on everyone. They were systematic, efficient, relentless. They hunted entire species to extinction. It took a united galactic effort to stop them. By the time the war ended, over 40 species were completely destroyed, and hundreds of planets were left lifeless. The weight of his words settled over the room like a blanket. Jake tried to think of something to say. Some way to defend humanity. But what could he say? Human history was full of genocides and massacres. They had built weapons capable of destroying their own planet multiple times over. What happens now? Jake asked quietly. Vareth hesitated. The Coalition Council is meeting in emergency session. They're deciding what to do about Earth. I evacuated our team from your station because some council members wanted to deploy military assets immediately. I convinced them to wait, to give us time to talk. Military assets? Lisa's voice cracked. You mean warships? Warships? 63 coalition vessels are currently taking positions at the edge of your solar system, Vareth confirmed. They're establishing a quarantine. No human ships are to leave this system until the council makes a decision. Jake pushed himself out of his chair and floated to the window. In the distance, he could see Earth, beautiful and blue. His home, the home of 8 billion humans who had no idea that the galaxy saw them as monsters. Ambassador Varath, Jake said, turning back to the screen. We're not the Dravex. We've fought among ourselves, yes. But we've also built societies based on helping each other. We have art, music, science, philosophy. We're capable of compassion and mercy. I want to believe that, Vareth said, and he sounded sincere. But the council is terrified. They've seen what happens when a species like yours reaches the stars. They won't make the same mistake twice. What are our options? Jake asked. Vareth was quiet for a long moment. The Council is considering 3 possibilities. First, permanent quarantine. Earth becomes a prison world, and humanity never leaves this system. Second, supervised integration with strict controls on your population and movement. Third, Lisa prompted when the ambassador didn't continue. Third, Vareth said softly. They eliminate the threat before it can spread. Some council members are arguing for immediate action. They believe it's better to save trillions of lives throughout the galaxy than to risk another Dravex situation. The implication was clear. They were talking about destroying Earth, killing every human being to prevent a possible future threat. Jake felt cold all over. First contact, which should have been humanity's greatest achievement, had become their potential death sentence. All because of a biological test that measured what humans had evolved to be. How long do we have? Jake asked. The council will vote in 3 days, Vareth replied. I'm sorry, Commander. I truly am. For what it's worth, I'll be voting for supervised integration. But I'm only one voice among hundreds. The transmission ended, leaving the humans staring at a blank screen. Outside the window, Earth continued its slow rotation, unaware that 63 alien warships were deciding whether humanity deserved to exist. President Nicole Martinez sat in the Situation Room, surrounded by military advisors, scientists, and diplomats. The room was silent, except for the hum of computers. On the main screen, the positions of 63 alien warships glowed like red stars at the edge of the solar system. 3 days had passed since the revelation, and the waiting was driving everyone crazy. They're just sitting there, said General Peters, head of Earth's Defense Forces. No movement, no communication. They're waiting for orders. Orders to do what? Someone asked, though everyone knew the answer. Dr. Greg Foster stood up from his desk in the corner. He had been working non-stop since the crisis began, trying to understand the Predator Classification Index. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, and coffee stains covered his shirt. I think I understand how the test works, he announced. And I know why we scored so high. Everyone turned to look at him. President Martinez nodded for him to continue. The index doesn't just measure physical traits, Greg explained. It measures behavioral and cognitive patterns. Let me show you something. R, Creeding, G, Creeding, Greg, it measures, Greg. He pulled up a comparison chart on the screen. Here's the Krell. Those 4-armed predators that score 7.9. They're individually powerful, with natural armor and strength, but they hunt alone or in small groups. Their strategies are simple. They rely on overwhelming force. Another image appeared, showing a different alien species. These are the Vraxi, venomous hunters that score 7.5. They're ambush predators with biological weapons. Deadly, yes, but predictable. They have one strategy, and if it fails, they retreat. Now look at humans, Greg said, and the screen filled with data. We don't have natural weapons, but we create them. We don't have armor, but we build it. We're not fast, but we're patient. We can track prey for days, weeks, even years. We work in groups ranging from 2 to millions, all coordinated toward a single goal. And most importantly, we adapt. The index measures 9 core factors, Greg continued. Physical capability is only one of them. The others are persistence, strategic thinking, tool use, cooperation, adaptability, learning speed, resource exploitation, and organized violence. We score above 9 in almost every category. Lisa Chen, who had been allowed to join the meeting via video link from the orbital station, spoke up. So we're dangerous because we're smart and stubborn? Essentially, yes, Greg confirmed. The Dravex Collective, the species that nearly destroyed the galaxy. They had the same traits. They were patient, adaptable, and they worked together in massive coordinated efforts. They didn't just attack planets. They systematically hunted entire species, studying them, predicting their moves, cutting off their resources. Sound familiar? The room was quiet. It did sound familiar. It sounded like every major military campaign in human history. But we're not monsters, President Martinez said firmly. We've done terrible things, yes, but we've also done beautiful things. We've created art and music and literature. We've built hospitals and schools. We help each other. Try telling that to the aliens, General Peters muttered. They've seen our history. They know about our wars, our weapons, our capacity for destruction. As if responding to his words, an incoming transmission alert beeped. President Martinez authorized it, and Ambassador Verath's face appeared on the screen. Madam President, he said. The Council has reached a preliminary decision. Everyone leaned forward. This was it. The moment that would determine humanity's future. The vote was close, Verath continued. But the Council has decided that immediate extermination is not justified. You haven't actually committed any crimes against the Coalition. Relief washed through the room, but Verath held up a hand. However, the Council has voted to implement permanent quarantine. Earth and its solar system will be isolated from the rest of the galaxy. You will be allowed to develop within your system, but you may never leave it. Any human ship that crosses the boundary will be destroyed without warning. That's a prison sentence, President Martinez said, her voice hard. You're condemning humanity to eternal isolation because of what we might do, not what we have done. The Council believes it's the safest option for the galaxy, Verath replied. I'm sorry. The vote was 387 inches favor, 162 against, with 23 abstentions. When does this take effect? Lisa asked from the orbital station. Immediately. We're establishing a permanent monitoring station at the system's edge. Any attempt to leave will be considered an act of war. President Martinez stood up slowly. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. Ambassador Verath, I want to propose an alternative. Verath looked surprised. The Council has already voted. Then let them vote again, Martinez said. Give us a chance to prove ourselves. One chance. Let a small team of humans participate in a real coalition mission. Watch us, monitor us, judge us by our actions instead of our test scores. That's impossible, Verath said. The Council would never approve. Why not? Martinez challenged. If we're as dangerous as you think, you'll have proof. If we're not, then maybe you'll reconsider the quarantine. What do you have to lose? You already have warships surrounding us. We can't escape. I'm one. Verath was silent, considering. Finally, he said, I would need to present this to the Council. And I can't guarantee they'll agree. But you'll try? Martinez pressed. I'll try, Verath agreed. But understand, if the Council agrees to this, you'll be under constant surveillance. Any sign of the behavior we fear, and the quarantine becomes permanent with no possibility of appeal. We understand, Martinez said. How long until we hear back? 2 days, maybe less. I'll contact you as soon as I have an answer. The transmission ended. President Martinez turned to face her advisors. We need to start selecting a team. If the Council agrees, we need to be ready. What kind of team? General Peters asked. The best we have, Martinez replied. People who can think on their feet. Who can show the galaxy what humanity is capable of when we're at our best. Not warriors, but problem solvers. Dr. Greg Foster spoke up. You realize this could backfire, right? If our team fails, or if they show any of the aggressive tendencies the aliens fear, we'll have proven their point. The quarantine will be permanent, and we'll never get another chance. I know, Martinez said. But what's the alternative? Accept the quarantine and give up on the stars? Our ancestors looked up at the night sky and dreamed of reaching it. They built rockets and space stations and pushed the boundaries of what was possible. I won't be the president who tells humanity that the dream is over before it really began. She walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Millions of people going about their lives, unaware of the crisis happening above their heads. They deserved a chance. Humanity deserved a chance. Start making a list of candidates, she ordered. I want options within 12 hours. And someone get me everything we can find on coalition missions, peacekeeping operations, anything that might give us insight into what we'll be facing. As her staff rushed to follow orders, Martinez allowed herself a moment of doubt. Was she making the right choice? What if the team failed? What if the aliens were right to fear humanity? But then she thought about human history. Not just the wars and violence, but the other parts. The doctor who worked for decades to cure a disease. The teacher who spent her life educating children. The artist who created beauty from nothing. The engineer who solved impossible problems. Humanity was more than just their predatory instincts. They were also capable of incredible compassion and creativity. The galaxy was about to get a closer look at what humans could really do. Martinez just hoped they would like what they saw. The transport ship was cramped and uncomfortable, designed for aliens with different body shapes than humans. Lieutenant Ryan Hayes sat strapped into a seat that pressed against his shoulders at odd angles, trying to review the mission briefing one more time. Across from him, Kate Morgan was checking medical supplies, her fingers moving quickly through the organized compartments of her kit. Stop fidgeting, Ben Shaw said from his seat. The engineer was the calmest person on the ship, which made sense since he spent most of his time working with machines instead of people. We're still 3 hours out. Easy for you to say, Ryan replied. You're not the one in charge. Laura Kim looked up from her tablet. The negotiator had been quiet since they left Earth, absorbing everything she could about the situation they were flying into. None of us are in charge. Also, none of us are in charge, she said. We're a team. We succeed together or fail together. Ryan appreciated the sentiment, but he knew the truth. If this mission failed, it would be his name at the top of the report. President Martinez had chosen him to lead this team, and with that choice came responsibility. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on his shoulders like a physical thing. The Coalition Council had agreed to the test mission, barely. The vote had been even closer than the quarantine vote. Now Ryan and his team were flying to a planet called Kellis 7, where something called the Hraken were causing problems. The briefing had been light on details, but heavy on warnings. Coalition observers would watch every move they made. Any sign of excessive violence, any hint of the predatory behavior the aliens feared, and the test would end immediately. Approaching Kellis 7, the ship's computer announced in translated English, "Prepare for landing." The planet looked green and blue from orbit, similar to Earth but with larger oceans. Ryan could see cities scattered across the continents, and what looked like farmland between them. It seemed peaceful. But according to the reports, the Hraken had been attacking settlements for the past 6 months. The Coalition peacekeeping force couldn't stop them without causing massive civilian casualties. They landed at a Coalition base on the outskirts of the largest city. As they exited the ship, Ryan got his first look at the variety of alien species in the Coalition. There were tall, thin creatures like Verath, short, stocky beings with too many eyes, something that looked like it was made of crystal. All of them stopped what they were doing to stare at the humans. "They're scared of us," Kate whispered. "Good," Ben muttered. "Maybe they'll stay out of our way." "Not helping," Laura said sharply. A Coalition officer approached them. His name was Keth, and he was from a species Ryan didn't recognize. He had gray skin and moved with a nervous energy that suggested he didn't want to be there. "I'm your official observer," Keth explained. I'll accompany you on all mission activities and report your behavior to the Council. Try not to, you know, kill anyone. That's the plan, Ryan said dryly. Can you show us the situation maps? The command center was organized chaos. Dozens of aliens worked at stations, tracking Hraken movements and coordinating defense efforts. Ryan studied the displays, noting the patterns in the attacks. The Hraken hit the same areas repeatedly, always agricultural zones or resource storage facilities. They took food, water, and building materials, but they avoided direct confrontation when possible. This doesn't look like a military campaign, Laura observed. It looks like resource gathering. Of course it's resource gathering, a Vexian officer snapped. They're raiders. They steal what they need. But why? Ryan pressed. Where are they taking the resources? The Vexian officer looked confused by the question. To wherever raiders live. Does it matter? Yes, Ryan said. It matters a lot. Kate, can you pull up information on Hraken biology? Kate worked her tablet quickly. They're carbon-based, similar to several other species in the Coalition. They need oxygen, water, protein, and mineral nutrients. According to this, they used to have a homeworld called Hrak, but it's listed as uninhabitable now. When did it become uninhabitable? Laura asked. About 8 months ago, Kate read. Environmental collapse. The planet's ecosystem failed due to industrial pollution and resource overexploitation. Ryan turned to the Vexian officer. So their world is dying, and they've been raiding here for 6 months. They're not invaders. They're refugees. The officer's expression cycled through several emotions. That's impossible. We would have known. Would you? Laura challenged. Did anyone try to communicate with them? Or did you just start shooting when they showed up? Keth, the observer, was furiously taking notes. Ryan ignored him and focused on the map. Ben, I need you to analyze their raid patterns. I want to know exactly what they're taking and in what quantities. Kate, figure out what kind of environment the Hraken need to survive. Laura, see if you can find any records of attempted communication. What are you planning? Keth asked, nervously. Talking to them, Ryan said. Before we do anything else, we need to understand what they want. Over the next 2 days, the team worked with an intensity that seemed to disturb the Coalition personnel. Humans didn't sleep much, they discovered. Ryan and his team took short naps but otherwise worked constantly, pouring through data and building a picture of the situation. Ben discovered that the Hraken were taking resources in quantities that suggested a population of around 50,000 individuals. They were precise in their raids, taking only what they needed and avoiding unnecessary damage. Kate determined that the Hraken could survive in Kellis 7's environment with minimal adaptation. Laura found 17 attempts by the Hraken to communicate, all ignored by the Coalition forces. They've been trying to talk to us the whole time, Laura said, her voice angry. And we just kept shooting at them. So what's your plan? Keth asked. Ryan had noticed the observer was less hostile now, more curious. We're going to offer them a deal, Ryan explained. There's a continent on Kellis 7 that's barely populated. According to Kate's analysis, it could support a Hraken colony. We propose giving them settlement rights in exchange for peace. The Council will never approve, Keth said, but he sounded uncertain. They don't have to approve, Laura replied. The local government can make that decision. And right now, they're desperate enough to try anything. The next Hraken raid came 3 days later. Instead of responding with force, Ryan's team was waiting with a white flag and translation devices. The Hraken warriors approached cautiously, their weapons ready but not raised. Ryan stepped forward, hands empty and visible. We want to talk, he said. The Hraken leader was larger than the others, with scars covering his thick hide. He studied Ryan for a long moment, then lowered his weapon. You're the humans, he said. We've heard the others talking about you. They say you're dangerous predators. We can be, Ryan admitted. But we'd rather be friends. Your world is dying. You need a new home. We can help arrange that. The negotiations took hours. The Hraken leader, whose name translated roughly to stone, was suspicious at first. But as Ryan explained the proposal, offering land, resources, and a chance to rebuild, Stone's resistance faded. He was tired of fighting. His people were tired of running. Why help us? Stone asked finally. What do you gain? Peace, Laura answered. And a chance to prove that humanity can be more than just predators. We solve problems. This is a problem. Let us solve it. The settlement agreement was signed 1 week later. The Hraken would receive territory on the southern continent, along with assistance in establishing their colony. In exchange, the raids would stop immediately. The coalition observed the entire process, with something approaching disbelief. You could have just killed them, Keth said to Ryan, as they prepared to leave Kellis 7. Your skills, your strategies. You could have hunted them down and eliminated the threat permanently. That's what we expected. That would have been easier, Ryan agreed. But easier isn't always better. Yes, humans are predators. But we get to choose what we hunt. We chose to hunt a solution instead of hunting people. The return trip to Earth was quiet. The team was exhausted, but satisfied. They had done what they set out to do. They had shown the galaxy that humans could control their instincts, that they could choose compassion over violence. The question was whether the coalition would care. The coalition council chamber was massive, designed to hold representatives from hundreds of different species. Ambassador Verath stood at the central podium, his 4 hands gripping the edges as he addressed the assembled leaders. Behind him, a holographic display showed footage from Kellis 7, documenting every moment of the human team's mission. Members of the council, Verath began, we have completed our evaluation of the human test mission. I present our findings for your consideration. The chamber fell silent. Every eye in the room was focused on the display as it showed Ryan Hayes and his team approaching the Hraken with nothing but words and a white flag. Many council members shifted uncomfortably as they watched humans negotiate instead of fight. Councillor Thrain of the Vexian Empire stood abruptly. This proves nothing. Actively, he declared. One peaceful mission doesn't erase the threat they pose. They still scored 9.8 on the Predator Index. That fundamental nature doesn't change. You're correct, Verath agreed. Their nature doesn't change. But I've come to realize we've been asking the wrong question. He gestured to the display, which now showed a series of comparisons. On one side was footage of the Krell hunting, their forearms tearing into prey with brutal efficiency. On the other side was footage of Ryan's team working through the night, analyzing data and building strategies. We asked ourselves whether humans are predators, Verath continued. The answer is yes, clearly. But we failed to ask the more important question. What do humans hunt? He changed the display again. This time it showed human history, but not the wars and violence the council expected. It showed scientists working on medical cures, their research spanning decades, engineers solving impossible problems through trial and error, teachers dedicating their lives to educating the next generation. Humans apply their predatory instincts to everything, Verath explained. Yes, they can hunt and kill with frightening efficiency, but they use that same intensity, that same relentless focus, to hunt solutions. They identify a problem and pursue it until it's solved, just as their ancestors pursued prey across continents. Beautiful words, Thrain said dismissively. But words don't change the danger they represent. Then let me show you something else, Verath replied. He pulled up the detailed reports from Officer Keth, who had observed the human team on Kellis 7. The humans worked 18-hour days with minimal rest. They studied every aspect of the Hraken situation, analyzing patterns with the same thoroughness a predator uses to track prey. When they identified the Hraken as refugees rather than raiders, they adapted their entire strategy within hours. This is what concerns me, another council member spoke up. That adaptability. That relentless pursuit. What happens when they decide to pursue conquest? Varath took a deep breath. This was the critical moment. The argument he had been preparing since reviewing the mission reports. Because they choose their targets. That's what makes humans different from the Dravex. The Dravex were driven by instinct to dominate and destroy. Humans are driven by choice. He changed the display one more time. Now it showed the moment when Ryan Hayes faced the Hraken leader. Watch this, carefully. Lieutenant Hayes had every advantage. His team could have set an ambush. Could have eliminated the Hraken leadership with minimal risk. Instead, he chose to negotiate. Not because he couldn't fight, but because he decided that wasn't the right solution. One example, Thrain insisted. Then explain their history, Varath challenged. Yes, humans have fought terrible wars, but they've also created the concept of war crimes. They've established rules for engagement, agreements to protect civilians and prisoners. They've built international organizations dedicated to peace. They fight against their own predatory nature constantly, and often, they win. The chamber erupted in debate. Some council members argued that the risk was too great, that one peaceful mission couldn't outweigh the potential danger. Others, swayed by Varath's arguments and the mission footage, began to reconsider. President Martinez watched the proceedings from Earth via a live feed. She sat in the Situation Room, surrounded by the same advisors who had been with her through this entire crisis. Her hands were clasped tightly, knuckles white from tension. It's close, Dr. Greg Foster said, watching the vote tallies update in real time. Too close to call. The debate continued for 3 hours. Finally, the council moderator called for order. We will now vote on the amended proposal. The question: shall humanity be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Coalition, with supervised integration and restrictions subject to review after a 5-year probationary period? The votes came in slowly. Each council member had to personally register their decision, and some took their time. Martinez barely breathed as the numbers climbed. They need 60% approval, Lisa Chen said, from her position at the orbital station. That's 343 votes. The final tally appeared on the screen. 359 inches favor, 213 against, 0 abstentions. The Situation Room exploded in cheers. Martinez felt tears streaming down her face as she watched her advisors hug each other and shake hands. Humanity had earned a place among the stars. On the Coalition Council floor, Varath allowed himself a small smile. Thrain looked disgusted, but said nothing. The decision was made. There are conditions, Varath announced to Martinez via their communication link. Human expansion will be monitored. Your population must remain under certain limits in Coalition space. Your military capabilities will be restricted, and you will be assigned specific roles within the Coalition structure. What kind of roles? Martinez asked. Crisis response and peacekeeping, Varath replied. Your unique skills, your ability to analyze complex situations and develop innovative solutions, these will be valuable to the Coalition. We face many challenges that traditional military force cannot solve. Perhaps humans can help with those. We accept, Martinez said immediately. All of it. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for believing in us. 6 months later, Captain Kyle Bennett stood on the bridge of the ECS Resolution, the first human ship to be integrated into the Coalition fleet. His crew was a mix of humans and aliens, all working together to prepare for their maiden voyage. Final systems check complete, reported Ben Shaw, who had been promoted to chief engineer after his success on Kellis 7. All stations report ready. Kyle looked around the bridge. Kate Morgan headed the medical bay. Laura Kim served as the diplomatic officer. Ryan Hayes commanded the security team, and throughout the ship, dozens of other humans worked alongside their alien counterparts. Helm, set course for the frontier, Kyle ordered. We have a situation to resolve. As the Resolution left Earth orbit, Kyle thought about how far humanity had come. 6 months ago, they were facing extinction. Now they were partners in a galactic community, using their unique talents to help solve problems across the stars. "Captain," said Keth, who now served as the ship's liaison officer to the Coalition. "The crew is ready for the mission briefing. Tell them we'll begin in 10 minutes, Kyle replied. He wanted a moment to appreciate this view. Earth behind them, the stars ahead, and a mission that would test humanity's place in the galaxy. Humans were predators. That truth hadn't changed. But they had proven they could direct that nature toward constructive purposes. They could hunt for solutions instead of victims. They could use their relentless drive to protect instead of destroy. The galaxy had been afraid of humanity, and perhaps that fear was justified. But fear could turn into respect when tempered with understanding. Humans were dangerous, yes, but they were also capable of extraordinary compassion and creativity. Admiral Jake Morrison, now stationed at Earth's primary orbital hub, watched the Resolution disappear into the distance. He thought about Ambassador Varath's words during the council debate. Humans weren't just predators. They were problem solvers who happened to approach challenges with the same intensity their ancestors used to hunt mammoth across ice ages. "What are you thinking about?" Lisa Chen asked, joining him at the observation window. "About what we are," Jake replied. "About what we've always been. We're hunters who learn to aim at bigger targets. Not animals or other humans, but problems, challenges, the impossible things everyone else gives up on." "That's very philosophical," Lisa said with a smile. "Maybe," Jake admitted. "But I think it's true. We scared the galaxy when they first met us. And we should scare them. A little. Not because we're monsters, but because we're capable of things they can't imagine. We're the species that looked at the stars and decided to reach them. We're the ones who face extinction and find a way to survive. We're predators, but we choose what we hunt." "And what are we hunting now?" Lisa asked. Jake gestured to the stars beyond the window. "Everything. Every problem the galaxy faces, every challenge they think is impossible. Every crisis that needs the kind of relentless determination that only humans can provide. We're hunters, and we've found prey worthy of our nature." The Resolution jumped to faster-than-light travel, disappearing in a flash of light. Behind it, Earth continued turning, home to 8 billion humans who no longer had to look at the stars and wonder if anyone was out there. They knew now. And more importantly, the galaxy knew about them. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. Not by denying what they were, but by choosing how to use it. They were predators. Natural-born hunters with skills refined by millions of years of evolution. But they were also so much more. They were explorers, innovators, protectors, and problem solvers. The galaxy had run human DNA against their predator index and found humans ranked higher than natural-born killers. They were right to be concerned. But they were also right to give humanity a chance, because the galaxy needed predators. Just not the kind that hunted people. It needed predators who hunted challenges, and humanity was ready to show them what that really meant.